My fellow Decepticons, welcome back to another video. We're going to discuss the new Netflix show. I'm here with Lugnut, and we want to talk about a spoiler-free review of Netflix's show, Transformers War for Cybertron Siege. Now, Lugnut, let's get into a comment you had made before the show came out about it being G1 redone. Can you explain that to me? Because I feel like that pretty much hit a big point for me. Like, that hit the nail on the head, and I think a lot of younger fans can appreciate that. If you liked G1, but it was a little dated, this is a more modern take on it. So why don't you get into that?
So very simply, the best way to describe it is the toy line that came out significantly before the show. People just kept on saying these are G1 designs. You look at Optimus, he's the red truck. You look at Ironhide, he's the red van. And the very similar designs of all these characters and such. And when the show came out and I actually got to watch it, I realized that there was a lot of little hints and nods to scenes from the G1 show and things that you'd only notice if you'd seen the previous show, but you don't need to see it to enjoy this. And I think this is a good jumping off point, like G1 was originally, for a continued story across a couple years, because as of recent we've been things will last maybe a couple years and they're very disjointed like Bavers. So yeah, I think this is G1 redone, the new beginning of Transformers.
And what I like about that is I had made this comment in one of our earlier cuts where I said that I feel that this feels like part of a progressive story that's moving forward versus, like I had mentioned there, that Beast Wars wasn't sure if it was going to get a season 2. So they had just done... They did whatever they were going to do, and they did not know they would get renewed. So I like that I can watch this and have some faith that they have actually built up something leading to the next part of a story versus, where we've seen different movies, TV shows, right, like the aligned continuity, where they say things are related that are, it's just obviously poorly slapped together and forced, right? I'm sure there will be some sort of issues that someone discovers. You guys are smart people, but from a story about the Decepticons and the Autobots, that's what I wanted, was to see not just their war, but their politics, their beliefs, right? And I'd like to get into, again, remember this is non-spoilers here, and we don't want to have to do several cuts, but we can look at this story, even, I would say, objectively, as not just a war story, but it portrays both Autobots and Decepticons as good guys and bad guys, right? There was more than just, I am Decepticon equal bad, right? There was the falling, or the great falling, where a character could have been a great person, but has made whatever choices or their own personality flaw has led to the point they're at now. And I think you can see that in several characters, Lugnut. What did you think about how their personalities were betrayed?
I think that obviously, no matter what, the Autobots were painted in a slightly better light. No matter what, they were, I would say, painted as significantly better than the Decepticons, but we do get some morally gray decisions that the Autobots had to make, and you could argue that these decisions were bad, or that they're not like these perfectly good guys like in so many other continuities. It's up to your own interpretation, really. So I do agree that I do think that the distinction between Autobot and Decepticon was blurred, and that their politics and how they want to solve the same issue, but they're trying to do that through different means.
Yeah, and I think what was good was even some of the past flaws of the Autobot faction had been brought up, and it did a good job, I think, of setting up other older veteran characters we don't want to be too specific here, but certain people being mentors, or certain characters having history with other characters, and I feel that it actually moved from, you know, point A to point B to like completion in the story versus, you know, in certain shows it just out of nowhere a character shows up, they have history with everybody. I felt like there was a story that was joined together, and the new characters who came in or came and went throughout the different moments in the story, I think that they had a good connection and reason to be there. There was absolutely no character that I was confused at. Hey, why is this guy here? Right? Even if they were just a soldier, it just seemed to be pretty well connected and built up to something that had a rewarding payout. And I'm talking about the individual plot lines. Like for some of the Decepticon characters, as you may know, some of the ones I'm talking about. And I feel like they did a good job of addressing Starscream as a character. I feel sometimes people go a little crazy. Like spoiler for Prime Wars. It was just ridiculous the things that happened with Starscream. I hated that in the Marvel continuity and the Marvel comics, right? And I hated it even more in Prime Wars trilogy. I think that the power scaling was fair. Wouldn't you say that, Lugna?
The power scaling, I would actually say, up until the very last episode of Titan's Return, was fair. But when that last episode,
I'm talking about the Netflix one. I'm talking about the current show that we're reviewing.
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry, not Prime Wars.
Worm.
Oh, yeah, no. Siege, War for Cybertron Siege had a very fair power scale. I don't think anyone was overpowered, and if anyone was more powerful than anyone else, they weren't like these godly beings that took a special artifact to disintegrate them.
Yeah, like I feel like when we looked at the character power scaling, almost anybody could have been killed by anyone given the right circumstance, which is the way it is with real life, you know.
Yes.
You could be Rocky, right? But if a 9-year-old kid has a revolver, right, he just happened to have a revolver and your time is up, right? And I felt like that was something that was kind of touched upon. If they are gun jammed or if something happened, they were in fist battles, and it wasn't like, wait, why are these guys who have guns throwing down their guns and fighting? Like, guns would actually be knocked out of people's hands, or there was actually real engagement in the combat, wouldn't you say, versus just, my name is Optimus Prime and your day is done, right? And then they pull out an axe in front of 25 people. Right.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The times that we see hand-to-hand combat or melee combat, depending on which one you want to talk about, it was either because it was ceremonial, it was to represent something, that this individual is beating the shit out of this one because of they think that they're better than them, and this individual may not be able to fight back because the other people around them have guns.
Right. And I think that was something that was clearly portrayed, right? That, the situations were part of what was dangerous about it, right?
Yes.
You knew that Optimus Prime could come in and, be like, I am Optimus Prime. But if Optimus Prime gets shot in the face twice, he's not going to spit out a tooth and say, I'll take you all on, right? So I felt that as a show. Let's go into the Decepticon portrayal, but I feel as a show, it portrayed the Decepticons as revolutionaries. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler. It's said in episode 1, like 5 minutes in.
Really.
But I feel it displays the Decepticons as characters who were fighting, right, a war for a just cause, who had lost their way or lose their way over time. Versus...
Absolutely.
Right? The big, angry hate monster that growls through the street and rips people in half and smells Samuel Witwicky, right? Like, I even liked the first movie better than some of the others, but I feel the Decepticons were characters in this. They had motives and reasons for what they did. there was jerks on the Decepticons, there was rude people on the Autobots. I think that the character portrayals were respectful to G1 while not just being Starscream arrogant, Starscream get power of God, destroy world, stop him at last minute, right? That kind of stuff, I'm done with it. I'm bored by that stuff. I want to see a more human story, which, if that's something you're looking for, is it's there, right? They zoom in on the characters' faces. They pause to show what that character might be thinking, and it's not one of the things that just hands it out, where it's just Prime sad, Prime's this, or I feel like they actually address, the emotions of the Decepticons, the emotions of the Autobots. They're portrayed through the character models and how they're represented. Wouldn't you say, I would say for my favorite character, Megatron had some good moments where, it conveyed, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but him thinking, right? Where he said directly, I need to think about this, right? And, it shows that on his face, that it wasn't just, Energon, for example, I think suffers from this. In the middle of conversation, Lugnut asked me a question.
Do you like...
yes, I do. I like it a lot. Right? Stuff like that happened in some of the other shows where the dialogue was very awkwardly cut together. And, that was one of my biggest concerns, was how the characters would be portrayed, if it would be a human story, the power scaling, right? And then finally, the voice acting, right? I'd say that there was one or two parts I didn't like about Optimus's voice acting, right? Or the direction they chose for him. But overall, I was fine with it.
I had an issue with Soundwave. I thought he was just kind of hard to understand a lot of the time.
Yeah, I guess so. And then there is the other character in the similar situation, if you know what I mean.
Yes. I know what you mean. I didn't bring him up, though.
So, but as I was saying, Lugnut, what is your view on how the Decepticons were portrayed?
I think that this was a very fair representation of them, in the idea that I would have preferred more screen time, but the story that was their, their side story, or their, you have two stories going on at the same time. You've got the Autobots and the Decepticons. I thought the Decepticons, theirs interlaced with the Autobots more fluidly than many others, where it's just, instead of the Autobots reacting to the Decepticons, it's this back and forth, and it's it was fairly engaging. And that's actually kind of that's one of the things I can praise this show for. I'm not going to say I liked it, but I think that as with the Decepticons being this force, right, where they're fighting the Autobots and they're genuinely threats. I think that this show does that very well, unlike G1, where a dude gets shot with 50 different blasts, and then Megatron's fusion cannon, instead of blowing off his arm, he gets just knocked down on his butt and he stands right back up.
Yeah, I think that the use of profanity, light profanity, added to it. Right, I didn't expect it. Yes. Right, I felt like it's finally PG-13 content, where previously I think that a lot of the stories have had a very heavy focus on simply child sales, right? They were marketed, made, and sold to children, when, shows like Rescue Bots I actually enjoyed. It's not my favorite Transformers show, but it was a good show, right? And I think that Transformers has finally got a show that's at least for a mixed audience, right? If you're a parent and your shows, you're worried about the shows your child is watching, I wouldn't be too concerned about this one. But I would also be able to sit down and watch it with my child without any question of, is this really, profane? Or it had a really good middle ground. That's what I feel, is just simply that it's catered to fans of all ages, and it's marketable, right? So I think Lugnut will keep it simple. We'll keep it at that. I would recommend the show. If you have Netflix, it doesn't hurt to watch. If you're a fan of G1, I think you'll be happy. And I think if you're a fan of the Decepticons, you'll definitely be happy as well. I think that the Decepticons have always benefited from having like kind of background characters like the Viacons and stuff like that, and it's no spoiler.
And Seekers.
Yeah, it's no spoiler to say that if you're a fan of like action and content, it's there, right? The elements that are needed for it to be there, right? It's not just Decepticon main characters dying off every 5 seconds so that an Autobot can look cool, so that when its toy hits the shelf, boom. Hey, that's the guy who killed such and such, right? I felt like that wasn't an aspect here. It was a good show first. Do you have any closing thoughts on whether or not you'd recommend it?
I give it a 5 out. So as a Transformers fan, give it 5 out of 10. If I was brand new to Transformers, I could see someone giving it a 7 out of 10 or maybe 8.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the rating system, but I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I think it at least sets something up. That's what I always look for in a show that I know is going to be multiple parts, right? If it can't set something up, to me, it doesn't matter how amazing that one part is, right? If it's the greatest standalone part 1 of 22, and I know the next 19 parts are going to be terrible, I'm going to hate that part too. So I am a little bit more generous there. But anyway, we'll see you guys in the next video. If you have any criticism, feedback, whatever, on how we should conduct these reviews of the different shows, and maybe if you want a more in-depth breakdown of what we thought of the episodes after people have had some time to watch it, please let us know in the comments below. Thank you guys. We'll see you in the next video.
Reroute all likes and subscribes to this YouTube channel.
But sir, what about the other YouTube?
Any further objections? Ram this video straight into the minds of our viewers.